Crypto never ceases to fascinate. There are some assets that are hated by everybody, either because of the fundamentals, the things the project tries to achieve, or because of the tokenomics, because the supply expands that much. There are projects nobody likes, yet the price goes up. Worldcoin is exactly that token. Let's have a look at some metrics most people are not considering. Let's try to figure out where this price is headed from here. Now we're currently at $1.04. And in the last month, Worldcoin went up by 33%, while Bitcoin in comparison was only able to appreciate by 14%. Now here's something interesting. When we look at the size of Worldcoin, so the supply times the price, we get to a market cap of 1.4 billion. Yet the largest liquidity pool on chain is only worth 1 million. So less than 0.1% of the market cap. So here it is. This is the liquidity pool on Solana, 1.0 million. We've got another one of 900 million. And here's a pool directly on Worldchain, worth 1.2 million. It appears as if price discovery for WLD does not happen on chain. It seems to be happening somewhere else. And that somewhere else is the centralized exchanges. Most trading volume on the spot market happens on Gate.io, followed by Binance, followed by BitHump. But there's not just the spot market, there's also the bets on the price. Those are levered derivatives, and that's led by Binance and MEXC. And here the trading volume is way larger. It goes in the hundreds of millions of dollars every 24 hours. Now this is where price discovery happens. Let's dig a bit deeper. Check this out. This is the open interest weighted funding rate. So how much do longs have to pay the shorts in order to get exposure to Worldcoin? That tends to be positive most of the time. In other words, more people bet on rising prices than on falling prices. Most people are bullish. However, what's interesting is that the people that are bullish on Worldcoin, they tend to take that much leverage that in case there's just a little bit of a dip, tons of liquidations happen. The open interest for WLD, so the US dollar amount that's currently being exchanged on the derivatives market, it's at 300 million. It grew by 2x in the matter of a few days. And just have a look at how this correlates, right? The more open interest there is, the higher the price tends to be. So the majority of the recent price increase can just be explained by hedging of bets on the derivatives market. Now Worldcoin has a very unique setup. The tokenomics aren't that pretty. The supply expands over time quite aggressively, and if demand for WLD doesn't grow at the same rate, then the price has to go down. At least it has to underperform Bitcoin. Of course, when Bitcoin goes up and all of crypto appreciates, then Worldcoin will appreciate to a degree as well. But the relative performance to Bitcoin is also determined by the tokenomics, by how many tokens are currently floating. And so here we've got the circulating supply of Worldcoin over time. We only had 500,000 in July of 2023. That now grew to 6 times as many tokens today. It's hard to keep the price stable when the supply 6x's. Here's a different way to look at similar data. We can see who gets all of those tokens. And of course, it's not just the community that's benefiting from the token inflation. It's also the insiders that might sell over time. And that then explains this chart. That explains why WLD relative to Bitcoin, so the relative performance, tends to rather trend down over the months. From the peak in February of this year to today, WLD underperformed Bitcoin by 94%. So the recent 30% move, it's just a bounce from the overall bearish trend. Now, what about the usage of Worldcoin? What about Worldchain, for example? What about the adoption on chain? Is there something happening that might turn us bullish long term? Well, here's something interesting. The number of NFTs minted on the World app is growing quite aggressively. On a single day, there are more than 3,000 NFTs minted. We also see how the number of decentralized exchange trades of WLD is growing over time. Now, this is all driven by Worldchain itself. It's not on Ethereum, it's not on Optimism, it's on Worldchain itself. And then there's the big question, how natural is that decentralized exchange trading volume? And let's compare on dexscreener.com. So in the last 24 hours, according to dexscreener.com, we only had $1.2 million worth of trading volume on Worldchain. Compare this with Arbitrum, where there were 369 million, or Solana, where there were 3.2 billion, or the base chain, where there were 18 billion worth of trading volume. The usage of the Worldcoin chain is pretty much zero. It also makes no sense that the number of Worldchain users is declining over time, while apparently the decentralized exchange trading volume on it is rising. In a single week, there are more than 200,000 smart contracts created on Worldchain. Is this all natural? I've got my doubts. And so the long-term trend is clear. The supply is expanding and Worldcoin tends to underperform Bitcoin. Currently, this rally can still continue for a while because in this overall trend, we are still not yet at the top. So even though I'm not long-term bullish on Worldcoin, I don't think now is the best time to bet on falling prices. I think it's better to wait for a secondary short squeeze, maybe after Worldcoin outperforms Bitcoin by another 50% or so, and then it's probably a good time to bet in the same direction as the overall trend. Tokenomics don't lie, and if adoption doesn't grow and it's all just artificial numbers, the long-term price development is quite clear. There is of course a lot of manipulation by the market makers as well, but the larger the market cap is, if now Worldcoin goes back to $2 billion, the harder it is also to manipulate the price. Now finally we enter a market again where everything is going up, and I think it's important to seize the opportunity, not just randomly buy things, but buy the things that tend to go up more than others. Now that's easier said than done, but let's have a look at Virtual, for example. How can we find something like Virtual's protocol not just a week ago, but how can we pick it up early, as in when it just was a few cents? I don't think that we have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to be the best traders on the planet to figure this out. We can just have a look at the people that tend to move markets, that tend to make good trades. For example, here's somebody that did not necessarily always do the best trades. So here are signals by Ben Armstrong. He got some virtual tokens very early on, allocated for a promotion. He sold this for very low prices, 1.4, 1.3 cents. So yeah, following people like Ben Armstrong or BitBoy Crypto is probably not the best idea. But there are some people that do make regularly very nice trades. For example, this guy over here, Brian Young. He's got more than 2 million subscribers and he mainly talks about crypto. He was one of the very first influencers that we track that bought virtual token for very low prices. 15K over here for 7 cents. The community talked about this quite a bit, 61 comments. That was more than 1 year ago on the 21st of March 2024. And so the rest is history. The price went up by more than 6,000%, even after a subsequent crash and then the current recovery. The price is still up by almost 2,000%. Crypto is not necessarily a game where the people with the best fundamental analysis win. I think it's much more of a player versus player game. It's much more of a game of insiders versus the not so well informed retail investor. Even though YouTubers like Brian Young do very good crypto content and they also trade well, it's very hard to figure out where do they actually put their money and how much do they invest. Even when I search here for the Virtuals token, I can't even find a dedicated video on Virtual on his channel. The token might be hidden somewhere in those list videos, but that's about it. Now the first dedicated video on Virtual's protocol was published half a year ago over here. That video outperformed the average video. The average video is here in gray and the performance of that video is in blue. At the time, the price was at 41 cents. And even from that point onwards, we went up by more than 1,000%. So I publish videos on various altcoins regularly on this channel. I try to find the ones that still have a lot of upside potential. So feel free to subscribe over here. Now, if it's that easy to make money just by looking at what other people are doing, how do we actually know that early what, say, BitBoy Crypto or what Brian Young is doing? The answer is wallet tracking. With some on-chain analytics, we found out what kind of wallet is owned by what influencer. For example, over here, we found 5 wallets of Brian Young. In total, we track almost 600 wallets. So that's of various influencers. And the way we find those wallets is by looking at what kind of NFTs are they holding, what kind of tokens are they holding. Let's say they share in a video that they have $150,000 worth of a very small token. There aren't too many wallets. that might own that amount. We're looking at related wallets, deposit addresses on centralized exchanges. We're doing all kinds of small tips and tricks, and those are all explained here in this little tutorial course on wallet discovery. So that can be found below at thebitcoinstrategy.com. And so the premium community of this channel is focusing on that. We try to find new wallets, we share those wallets with others, and then we track the wallets. And then sometimes we find out that some influencers aren't always ethical. For example, here's a video by one influencer that talked about the Champ token just after we got the buying alert. So that's then the way it works, right? The influencer buys a small cap cryptocurrency and then afterwards promotes it on the social media following, and then the social media following is buying into the token, pushing up the price even further. So a classical pump and dump, and the winners are always the people that buy in early, before all of that social media publishing has been done. That's what the wallet tracking is so useful for. And so clearly it's time to make money again. Since October of 2023, more and more money is flowing into the market. The stablecoin market cap is going up. So as per tendency, cryptocurrencies should go up in price. Now the problem is that returns are very concentrated in just a few winners, right? It's a winner takes most game. It's player versus player, and the vast majority of people still lose even in market conditions like this. But yeah, we are tracking those almost 600 wallets. We've got our dedicated influencer trade channel, and when we see insiders like the Pipicoin or Based AI team accumulating a very small market cap token, for example over here, KEK, that's a signal of today, then it's likely that the price rises, right? There are all these accumulation buys, and as long as insiders buy more and more of a very small token, things tend to go up. So this is now an appreciation of almost 200% over the span of a week. And so yeah, there are two ways to make money. We can simply just take random tokens, and they are likely going to appreciate to a degree. But if we want to take full opportunity of this market, it's better to follow the smart money, right? It's better to buy the virtual protocols of this world when it's just a few cents worth of a token and then moves to several dollars. I'm of course sharing my own trades in premium as well. That goes without saying. And so feel free to check it out. It's currently $125 per month. There should be a link somewhere here on the screen, probably at the bottom right, that leads you directly to that page. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish this regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube, or see you in premium. Cheers.